ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another episode of Amthal al-Quran. This is our daily show throughout the month of Ramadan, where we'll be looking at the various parables in the Quran. Now we will, as we've done previously, we mentioned a couple of hadith about the virtues of the Quran to motivate us and to make us even closer to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad Saf. How are you doing?
Alaikum salam, Ustad. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, bi khair, alhamdulillah, mashallah, very good. So, do you have a narration about the virtues of the Quran for us tonight?
Alhamdulillah, yeah, I would like to share one, inshallah, with our viewers. So this hadith is by Ibn Abi Shayba in his Musannaf, and I think is also narrated by Ibn Hibban in his Sahih. And the hadith goes, I think it's from Zayd bin Arqam, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inni tarikum fikum kitab Allah wa hablullah ومن اتبعه كان على الهدى ومن تركه كان على الضلالة. So the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam is saying that, look, I've left for you, or left amongst you, the book of Allah, and that is the rope of Allah, the thing that will connect you to Allah, the cable. ومن اتبعه كان على الهدى. And whoever follows this book will be on guidance, and whoever leaves this book will fall into misguidance. So this is the Shahr al-Huda, which is the month of guidance, because in it, the guidance itself was revealed. And so we ask Allah to keep us firm on the guidance.
Ameen.
And we want to avoid being able, not leaving any part of the Quran, any part of this guidance. So I thought I'd share that hadith, inshallah, every session.
Beautiful, mashallah, that's very beautiful hadith. So brothers and sisters, hope you benefited from this hadith, and by all means, if you come across any other hadith or any other virtues of the Quran, by all means put it into the comments and let others benefit as well. So we're here to learn from each other, alhamdulillah. So tonight, inshallah, our next parable really is part B of the parable that we discussed on the previous night, about the good tree, from Surah Ibrahim, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ibrahim, verse number 24, he says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم ترى كيف ضرب الله مثلا كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. Have you not considered how Allah presents an example, making a good word like a good tree, whose root is firmly fixed and its branches high in the sky. تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها. It produces its fruits all the time by the permission of its Lord. ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون. And Allah presents examples for the people that perhaps they will be reminded. So we discussed this Amthal previously, and if you've missed it, and then you can catch up on this Amthal. And just for your information, I've created a page called Quranic Parables on Facebook, where basically we just store or reference all the previous shows, so it just makes it easier for you to access them rather than you scouring through my timeline in order to get to the previous shows. So check that page out. So if you missed any of the previous ones, you can go and watch it there, and also share it with your friends and family. So today is the second part, which is verse number 26, 1426. So let's go to the slide and then listen to a beautiful recitation before we actually dive into the detail. So let me just do that.
ومثل كلمة خبيثة كشجرة خبيثة اجتثت من فوق الأرض ما لها من قرار.
صدق الله العظيم. So this verse, Surah Ibrahim, verse number 26. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really contrasting with the good word that he mentioned in the earlier parable by now giving the example of a evil word. And the translation of the recitation is as follows: but an evil word is like a rotten tree, uprooted from the surface of the earth with no power to endure. And this is verse number 26. So let's move to the next slide and then go through our usual breakdown and general understanding of this parable. Ustaz Saf, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, Bismillah, it's really, really good. I like the picture there on the right hand side, or my right hand side anyway. I think our viewers left. MashaAllah, always a good selection, uprooted tree.
Yes, I've got a uprooted tree. It's interesting you mentioned that. There's some narration mentioned, Hanzala tree.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
right.
what Hanzala tree is in English.
Sorry?
I'm not sure what it is in English.
I'm not sure either. There's a kashuth tree as well. It's considered, because
Right. Okay. So I mean, I didn't know what it was. So, but anyway, I think I've got a good image here of a tree which is, uprooted and is quite, not very pleasant to look at.
If our viewers know it, please, by all means, share it, and then we'll have a look, see if they got a picture of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But as we always do before we go to the simile components, we always do a summary. But I thought I'll mention a summary of Imam al-Dhahhak, one of the great mufassir of the Quran. And he says, ضرب الله مثلا للكافر بشجرة اجتثت من فوق الأرض ما لها من قرار يقول ليس لها أصل ولا فرع وليس لها ثمرة ولا فيها منفعة كذلك الكافر لا يعمل خيرا ولا يقوله ولا يجعله الله فيه بركة ولا منفعة. So he says that Allah gives us a parable here of a disbeliever being like a tree that is uprooted from the earth. You can see that in the picture there, without any stability. It has no roots, branches, or fruits, and thus has no benefits for anyone. Similarly, the disbeliever in reality neither does good nor says good, and Allah doesn't put any blessings or benefit in what He says and does. So that's the overall summary of the parable. So let's go into the components. So by now, Ustad hasn't put the Arabic transliteration, but the likened is mushabbah. Mushabbah is an ugly, the ugly word is mushabbah, sorry. Kalimatin khabitha is mushabbah. And what is this kalima khabitha, this ugly word, compared to? They see it in green. The ugly word is compared to or likened to shajara khabitha, an ugly tree. So it's an ugly tree, and then the Ustad has put there in yellow. And what's the simile particle there? Well, it's ka, as you can see, just about to be circled in red. So that's the adawat, adatu tashbih, the ka. So the example of an ugly word is like an ugly tree. And then some of the qualities that combine the two together could be like, things like rootlessness, weakness, lack of stability, lack of firmness. So these are the underlying sort of qualities that join the two groups together, the mushabbah and the mushabbah bihi. So
I mean, this
look at it.
Contrasts with the previous verse.
That's right.
The kalimat tayyiba, right? So
that's right.
there is mentioned asluha thabitun, right? It has firm roots, and here it's got a weak roots. So there is a direct comparison that's been made. So kalimat tayyiba has strong foundation, and kalimat khabitha has weak foundation. And again, I guess it's pointing to the belief
right.
of
To kufr.
the Muslim
Yeah.
versus the belief of the disbeliever. And again, I think we can make the comparison between, belief of Islam, Iman versus Shirk.
Yeah, Iman is built on, how is Iman firm? Because it's built on intellectual proof. This is its foundation. This is what gives it its foundation. But kufr, in reality, its basis, the reality of kufr is because it's based on falsehood and not truth. It doesn't have a foundation.
Yes.
It doesn't have a foundation. It doesn't have it's not rooted in reality and what is true. So, so that's the comparison between Iman being firm and kufr being unstable.
And what is interesting here in this, in Kalimatul Tayyiba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, also, وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ, whose branches, extend into the sky. Here, there's no mention of it having, beautiful branches extending into the sky, because what's happened is that the powerful hurricane or the weather itself, couldn't withstand the environment in which it was,
That's right.
standing, that it basically, as mentioned in the verse itself, is an uproot.
That's right. In a manner of speaking, yeah, that's right. So, in a manner of speaking, kufr doesn't yield the intellectual fruits or truths that that we seek, because it's not because its basis is false. Can you see? So its thoughts and judgments about reality contradict reality. So it doesn't give you the intellectual fruits you're looking for. Whereas Iman, for example, Islamic Aqidah, it's based on intellectual proof and it agrees with reality. Can you see? So it yields truth for you. Can you see? So, but kufr, its judgments and thoughts contradict reality. So it can't address man's deep questions, man's need to answer deep questions about man, life, and the universe. So its false basis doesn't give us true thoughts. You see, about reality. So that's one of the
very interesting. I'm just, if you kind of look at, Western or non-Islamic societies, and could just look at this particular parable, non-Islamic societies is characterized by instability, is characterized by contradictions, and we see, society is in a constant state of flux and conflict in all aspects of life. There isn't any stability itself. Nothing is certain. I mean, one of the key things we can look at, perhaps, just in terms of ideas, why Islam has like fixed ideas and fixed laws and fixed values, and it doesn't change with change in time and place and condition. It's stable, where Western values, it's constantly changing. Morality is constantly changing. What was morally right, 10, 15, 20 years ago, today is, it's morally wrong, or vice versa. So Islam provides this continuity and this constantness in terms of its values and ideas, where kufr itself is always subject to change, and it's different types of kufr. I mean, whether it's capitalism, socialism, there could be different isms. There are going to be isms coming about every, now and then, every decade there'll be a new ism. When an old ism, has gone by its sell-by date, there will be a new ism.
But Allah saying it doesn't matter because ma laha min qarar.
Yeah.
No power to endure.
Yeah, there's no power to endure. And this is an interesting point. It's just a thought that came to my mind about Islam. Islam, even though we don't have Islam as a way of life implemented by an authority in a society practically implementing, but Islam as an idea, as a belief, is still held onto by millions, over 1 billion Muslims, even in the absence of a state. And which shows the enduring capacity or the enduring power of Islam, to when it enters into the hearts and minds of Muslims. I mean, if you look at the conditions of Muslims in the Muslim world, and some of the reasons why Muslims are persecuted in the Muslim world is because of Islam, whether it's in China, whether it's in Rohingya, whether it's in, you know, in Syria and other places where there's an ongoing battle, war against Islam and Muslims. Muslims, despite all the difficulties, they are holding on to Islam. You know, they are firm.
They may not see a beautiful practical manifestation of the way of life that's built on the Aqidah, but they're convinced of that Aqidah.
Yes.
Power for it to answer comprehensive questions about life. So even though, and that makes them want to carry it. So yeah, it's an important point you mentioned. So alhamdulillah, this is, even though, you know, the two, obviously our viewers can go back to the previous session and look at the two together.
Yes.
Because we've split them up into two sessions. But
yeah.
For those of you who've seen the first part and now watching this, watch the two together, inshallah, and read them both together, and you'll see the comparison.
Alhamdulillah, I think this one is very vivid, and I think what is worthwhile mentioning is the following verse, which is, we did not actually have it on the slide, because the following verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in verse number 27, he says, you know, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. That Allah keeps firm those who believe with the firm word. So بالقول الثابت, firm word, and it's referring to the earlier in terms of you know, kalimatu tayyiba. It's the firm word. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps the believer firm with you know, with this firm word in this life and also in the hereafter. وَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ الظَّالِمِينَ, and Allah sends astray the wrongdoers. وَيَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ, and Allah does whatever He wishes. So I think it's a very beautiful summary to this to this parable. And I think there's, you know, both of these parable of the good word and the evil word, I think there's so much to be learned and to, you know, taken from in terms of, you know, comparison of a character of a shakhsiyah of a Muslim versus a shakhsiyah of a disbeliever, and also comparing the Islamic civilization versus the non-Islamic civilization. So I think there's a lot in those two parables. Definitely. SubhanAllah. So in terms of some, you know, concluding points, in terms of in some reflections on this, I just bring up the slide, and then we can just have a quick look at that and do a summary of that for our viewers, inshallah. Just 1 second. There we go. So here I've got 3 points on the Ustad. So point 1, no deep roots means that kufr beliefs have no solid intellectual foundation, and the beliefs, they contradict the human nature, and so I think, you know, contrasting with Islamic belief, that it is based upon thinking and contemplation, and it's, you know, in line with the nature of man to worship the all-powerful creator.
I think points 1 and 2, you know, we alhamdulillah, we kind of sort of in broad strokes touched on.
Yeah.
But 3 really that does stand out. Maybe our viewers and us will remind ourselves first to think about this. Forget about intellectual arguments for now. Take the parables. Do you want to call to a tree that is rootless?
Yeah.
That gives no fruits or benefits? Allah saying, forget the intellectual stuff at the moment, yeah? Or do you want to call to a tree that is going to give you, has firm roots, is going to give you beautiful fruits? The parable is doing the thinking for you. I think it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, if you look at that image on the right-hand side, you know, how many of you would go and, you know, look at, you know, go on a tour to go and see that particular tree, all right? Or would you go on a tour to see a beautiful tree that is, is luscious and is giving fruit and, its branches are in the sky? Because even the word, khabitha and tayyiba, there is an emotional aspect in terms of beauty versus ugliness. So the beauty of Islam and the ugliness of kufr. So yeah, I think point three is one of the things I think is that Muslims, because Muslims, we have lost our conception of what Islam as a complete way of life is. And Islam has just been, largely due to secular education, reduced to, some, morals and some, religious practices. When it comes to the aspect of society and civilization, the West, the West is, of course, it's carrying its way of life to the world of democracy and secularism. And unfortunately, especially amongst the educated and the elite and the politicians and the rulers in the Muslim world, they are slavishly following that model without actually thinking and asking questions, about the Western, civilization. And I think as Muslims, there is a very important point here is that, we have our own framework, we have our own shajara, we have our own tree, and this tree gives us its own fruits, and we don't need to, go to Western civilization and we have tasted its, if I use the pun, the bitter fruits of it. We've tasted the bitter fruits of Western civilization. Muslims who are living in the West, they can testify to that, in terms of what's been happening in the last 20 years and in what's in the Muslim world, in terms of colonization and division and occupation and the rule of tyrants and puppets. Muslims have first-hand experience the fruits of Western civilization itself.
Oh,
So, brothers and sisters, so inshallah ta'ala, hope you found this amthal very beneficial, and certainly, as I've mentioned before, I think these two particular amthal is one of my favorites in the Quran, and I always enjoy reading, learning more about them, and they really make you think and give you a very, very vivid picture of what is Islam in its totality, and compared with what is kufr and shirk in its totality, and it gives that beautiful compare and contrast imagery in our minds. So inshallah ta'ala, I think I'll stop share. We will continue with our Amthal al-Quran, and we hope to see you tomorrow night for another Amthal, inshallah. And let me just tell you what is coming up tomorrow, so you are aware. So let me just share that very briefly. Right, so the best generation. This is the title that I gave Ustad Saf to this particular parable. It's quite a lengthy one. Surah Al-Fath, I believe, 48. محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار ورحماء بينهم. So this is Muhammad is the messenger of God, those who follow him, and harsh towards the disbelievers and compassionate towards each other. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to describe the essence of the best generation, the companions, which are the hard work and the beautiful fruits of the da'wah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I think this will be a very interesting one to dive into, inshallah. Inshallah. Okay, brothers and sisters, that is all for tonight. So have a wonderful evening, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh from me, Ustaz Saf.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.